Hello, Matias.
Hello.
How are you doing?
All good. Perfect.
You are in Argentina right now?
I am in Argentina, yes, with some heat in the air.
Oh, yeah? Well, I'm here in France and we're going to do this interview in English. It'll be translated at least in French because we're very excited to hear from you over in France. I must say I have been traveling around the world to interview a lot of spiritual teachers, and I've never heard such a profound, deep, and impactful content over the years of doing what I'm doing. I discovered you through the series on Gaia TV, and I've been absolutely amazed by your knowledge. So I'm excited to be interviewing you and to have this video go all around the world to all different co-creators listening to what I'm doing and others, that are into this knowledge. So, well, thank you for accepting to do this interview. How would you define yourself? Because you're like this, you seem to me like this guy, this person that shares his knowledge from past life that you remember from. How would you describe yourself, actually?
I usually describe myself as educator because I love education, and I study education to teach at schools and to help teachers to know how to teach. So that's what defines me.
Yeah, but what's define you rather than any kind of teacher is that what's invisible, what's for most of us non-comprehensible, meaning like talking about dimensions or talking about Atlantid or the new civilization or past lives. For you, it's kind of, I mean, you share that with like if it was tangible matter, it's so for you it's the same. I mean,
yeah, for me it's the same thing. I don't make a difference between everything that is around in information in the universe and this here. It's not like two different things. For me, it's like all the things connected in the same unity, but understood in different ways. So what brought me into this space of education and sharing with others was my memories of how to connect all those dots. So that's why I am defined like an educator. I
Yep.
like to be an educator, but the name that defines me is a rememberer.
Yeah.
So
And you
basically,
help
I
others to remember, and you help others through that to remember as well. How do
Yes,
you
I
how do you actually you're able to live with this understanding of that many dimension and all this visible and invisible world? How do you cope with this amount of information since you're a kid?
Well, it was crazy. It was not easy. I grew up in an agnostic family, so we had no religion or spirituality involved in my education. For me, it was all just painting, reading, and doing farm. So that was it. But since I was born, I saw the other beings around, the other beings in other dimensions, and for me that was normal. And whenever I talked about these things for my family, I was very creative. So it was not like you shouldn't talk about this or talking about the angels. No, it was like, oh, how cute.
Yeah,
So,
you were encouraged, from what I understood, to actually.
Yes, I was encouraged, but not because of spirituality, encouraged because of creativity, which was very different because we had no background in spirituality or any kind of religion. So that helped me to develop any memory without any condition.
Do you remember choosing that family or not?
Yes, I do. Yes. I remember beings bringing me to see my mom when she was 10 years old. I remember seeing all the situation of my family and remember the door of my house being a spirit from the outside. So yeah, I know I've been prepared to choose a place that allowed me to not be so conditioned to other beliefs. Yeah.
Do you remember the moment of birth on Earth, this incarnation, the time of transition when you incorporated the body?
Yes. I even remember a sentence that was not a sentence. It was a feeling of a being that was helping me to go into the body. And the being whispered to me, "Welcome to life. Believe everything, but don't believe in anything." And that's the last thing that I remember. And then I remember classical music, and that was my next memory after that. And it was because my grandfather used to listen classical music while I was in the womb. And after that, I remember everything. I remember the doctor. I remember everything that was happening during the birth. And I kept remembering everything.
Yeah. Is there really a point of death, or like whatever the newborn becomes a human being? I mean, comes out into the real form. I mean, comes out of the body. Is there a moment of where it's really? I mean, it seems to us like the people on Earth really chose strongly to be here right now at this moment in time, and even throughout all times, because it's suffering to come, to be born on Earth. It seems.
At least once in your existence, you have chosen to be here. Maybe that choice was 10 billion years ago, and all the rest of the years you had no clue what you were doing, but at least once you choose to be in this reality. So sometimes eventually you stop choosing, and you stop you start being just an echo, a remembrance of every decision that you have taken in the past. So eventually you don't choose anymore, but everything that is happening to you now, like being born, death, everything, is just an echo of your first decision.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
And there's no really a moment of for the spiritual point of view, there's no really a moment of death and birth. It's more like a wave. But for us in the body, we kind of, yeah. But in the body, you experience it even more, the moment of birth. But it's not that the spirit is anchored in the moment of birth. Actually, it's anchored in the moment of conception. And that's the moment when the spirit starts to really anchor in the body, or being born, actually.
Yeah. You describe in that series on Gaia moments where you are, and most of the time you seem totally guided by your guides, let's say, that you would call it your guides. And you compare it to different phases of your life where they're not there and they're off, and you're off, and you have your persona that seems completely different, that takes over. Can you describe that difference so we can really understand, and so that we can better connect ourselves to our guides and know what it feels like when we're on and off?
Yes. Yeah. When we are usually off connection, when we are living our daily life, basically because when you are connected to your guides all the time, you kind of lose the sense of reality, because they usually don't talk about past, present, or future. They just talk or communicate in different levels with no time and no space. So that kind of confuses you eventually, because it's like, but where should I go? When should I do this? It's like very confusing, because for them it's like fifth dimension. So in the fifth dimension, there's no correlation to this one. So usually when you are connected, you are having awareness of everything, but cannot be related to this reality all the time. You can see the whole, you can have awareness, but it's very difficult to really manage physical stuff. I had to leave these two experiences of being completely here and also connected into no space, no time, according to the stages of my task. What they said was, you need sometimes to be disconnected from the fifth dimension in order to accomplish goals in the third dimension, because if you don't know how to handle the third dimension, it makes no sense for you to connect to the fifth dimension. So there's no projects, no goals, no missions if you're not connected here, grounded. So it's needed for us to have periods of disconnection, because it means that you are trying to connect in a different way with a different dimension. So it's not meant for us to be constantly connected to them in those levels, but we can try to understand that we are connected to them. We can sense that we are connected to them when we don't have to think much about the things that we are doing, and they, even though, show up like solutions, people, things, they show up easily, and you don't have to do many things in order to accomplish something. So that's how you experience, basically, you are connected to them, even if you don't listen to them.
Yeah. So how different would you make with intuitions then and messages of the heart? Between guide, intuition, and heart.
Yeah, basically both are needed, because to trust your guides, you have to trust yourself, your intuition. Sometimes when you listen to them, like I did, even if you don't listen to the intuition, they will push you to do some stuff that you have to do. And life will push you towards that, even if you're afraid or confused or you have no idea what you're doing. Life will push you towards that situation. That's them, which actually, from the point of view of the fifth and sixth dimension, is yourself, just split in the fifth dimension. So your guides are actually aspects of yourself that are aware of yourself, telling you, you have to do this, otherwise we cannot move in the third dimension. But it's actually you. So when you feel intuition, is another way of, instead of listening to guides, you're connecting with your higher self, which is like connecting to the core of them. It's like if you, the easiest way to understand this is you have a left hand, a right hand, a head, one foot, other foot, and all together are working for you to walk, to do stuff, to think, to see, to sense. So imagine that one of your guides is your right, another one is your left, another one is one eye, the other one is another eye, or one is your hearing, the other one is your mouth, whatever. So imagine that all those guides are those parts of you. But when you go back to the heart, all of them are connected as one. So whether you can follow what you see or what you listen or what you sense, or you can just go to the heart and trust everything. So it's basically that. So you can picture the guides as different parts of yourself, that when you go back to the core and the intuition, it's like connecting with all of them at the same time.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to do that if the heart is not open.
Mm-hmm. Very, very different. Yeah.
Because is that how do you describe the awakening?
Oh, the awakening process for a human is like a crisis, usually. Because why? The awakening process is a moment when suddenly you stop using everything, and even though you feel everything. So, and it can just be a second. It's like, for example, it's like when you are living your life and suddenly you take a walk to clarify your mind, and you just stare at the tree and you see the ray of light, and suddenly you take a deep breath, and that deep breath makes sense. It was like, wow, now I get it, but you have no idea what you are getting. So that's awakening. Awakening is not, oh, I get an idea. No, that's just another process. Awakening process is when you say, now I get it, even if you have no idea what you're getting. Is this sense of, is this feeling of sense of everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's the awakening process. And what happens after the awakening process? That you lose all the senses that you usually use before. Like you were used to see one color, and suddenly when everything makes sense, you see all the colors at once. And suddenly that color that you used to see doesn't make any sense anymore. That's why when usually people get awakened, the first thing that they do is to quit the job, get a divorce, these kind of things, because one thing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So
it's like you need to revisit your whole life because you know you're looking through a different lens.
Yes, and it's something that it doesn't have to be logic, but it's clear. Yeah. It's like I know this is it, but I don't understand it. So not caring about understanding is part of the awakening process.
Yeah. So part in this awakening process, there's a lot of things that we learn throughout this process, and here you come with all those different teachings on different dimensions and all that, and throughout history, you know, how the Big Bang happened, and all these things that are just so different than what we hear, obviously, in historical books. How did you put all of this together? Did it came all at once? You seem to have studied it, have lived it, but at the same time, I guess at some point it started to come together, or is this just as you teach them, it comes to you and it clarifies itself? I mean, how does this whole process of teaching and remembering happens?
Well, at first, when I started to remember this, it was all mixed. Nothing makes sense until I was 17. When I was 17 years old, suddenly it all started to make sense in my head and find an order. And that was the moment when I started to have the tools to explain it, but only to friends. So I didn't explain it to other people until I was 21. And until that moment when someone said, if you had to explain everything that you remember, how would you do it? I had to sit down and organize my memories in a way that could be understood. So I started from that. And suddenly I realized that as I was trying to explain what I wrote, the things that I was explaining lose sense. And I was like, why? So suddenly I let the people ask me while I was explaining, and new answers were coming. And suddenly I learned to let my mind in blank. So I don't think about anything. And when people ask me questions, suddenly the answers starts to come. And every time is a different way of explaining it according to the person I'm talking to.
Yeah.
So with the time, I stopped wondering how should I explain something, and every day even more, I don't even care what I'm going to say. I don't prepare myself for anything, for any congress, for anything. That's why in Gaia they are so afraid when I go, because they have no idea what I'm going to say. So it's very difficult to make a schedule of what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But the reason why is because I learned that there are a lot of information that doesn't belong to me, that are not mine, that maybe I can translate it, but this information doesn't belong to me. So that's why I never did the question. And if I don't have the question, the answer doesn't come to me. So until someone does the question, I don't have the answer. So that's why I decided not to prepare anything that I'm doing anymore.
Yeah.
Because I rather allow that information to come through.
Yeah, but you're not afraid of the unknown then, yeah? Or just be there in front of a huge audience.
No, I don't care. If someone asks me something that I don't know, I say, I have no idea. And I'm not afraid of saying that I don't know.
Your description of the Akashic records seems to have changed, evolved over time, how you describe it. How can you tell us where you're at with that, and how would you describe it?
Today I would describe it as the nervous system of the universe. I think it's much more accurate when we are trying to compare it to something that we know.
More than a huge biblioteca.
Yeah, it's a library. It's a huge library. But when I was a child and my guides were trying to show it to me, I had in my mind the idea of a library. And as I was growing up, I saw that the books were not books. When I looked closely, they looked like nectar, like a drop of nectar, where the information was reflected. So I started to describe it as a beehive, and so on. Because
it evolved, yeah.
The reality starts to shape according to what you are able to see. So suddenly, now that I understand the connections of the reality, I can describe it as a neurological system with neurons sharing pulses of positive and negative data, trespassing from one side to another, and that are the magnetism of the planet, magnetism of the stars, the magnetism of everything that is moving, energy. So the data is not storage in books, but moving through one cell to another.
Is that evolving too? Is that evolving? I mean, how does that work out between this past, present, future coexisting simultaneously? I mean, how can that not be impacted at all times depending on our decisions?
It's constantly changing. The ways you see it, the ways you perceive it, the ways you access it is constantly changing. There are some clues that, of course, are constant, but actually in the minimum realm that people call the quantum mechanics, which is the atomic realm, the information is organized in a way that always shape themselves in a different order, but they always share data from one point to another. So it's positive and negative data being shared.
Yeah. Tell us about something that really impacted me when I listened to the series, and I'm going to put the link underneath if you don't have it, that goes straight to his series, because I think I loved it, because I've been doing so many interviews for decades that you really brought some good stuff, and like just your understanding of the dark forces and the light forces. I mean, a lot of us have been scared by dark forces. I've been scared personally in my own life. And how, and when you describe your tour around the world and in Argentina and the places you went to, and that you had to face those huge challenges and like totally surreal things that could be really frightening, like a car just throwing itself out of the tumbling, or I don't know what happened to you guys then, but how do you face this? I mean, you're saying that the dark forces are there also for evolution, and I think it's a big thing for us to remember. But how can you tell us more about that, and so that we can live also those difficult times in a positive way, let's say?
Yeah. We all come from unity, but the reason why we are here is not because of unity. Is because of another thing, which is division. So we call it this way. The unity, we call it the bending towards oneself. That in in Latin, say universus. So universe is something that bends towards itself, to the one. So universe. But then when one bends towards the outside, it's two, because it bends in two. So that's what we call in Latin diverse, which means two bending. So the thing is that we come from the universe, and the universe, in order to experience itself, created the diverse. So diversity means the expressions of the oneself. For instance, light. You have only one light, which is the white light, but suddenly it diverts itself into the rainbow, different colors. So you can see the different colors because your resonance has changed in order to be able to see it. But actually, it's all white. It's all light, pure light, that you are, because you bent yourself, you can appreciate and observe the colors. So all those colors, when they combine together, creates the lack of light, which creates dark colors and eventually the darkness. So we see for example, we see the universe around and we see darkness, the night sky, but actually it's not black. The only reason why we see it dark is because we cannot see the infrared light. But if you see the universe in an infrared light, you will see all blue and red colors all around, and not black. So it's just because we are not designed, we haven't evolved to see the light in that spectrum. So this means that actually the darkness, the biggest darkness that we see actually is full of light, but we are not designed to appreciate it. We haven't evolved yet to that. So the same thing happens with the entire diversity, which means one cell divides in two in order to create life. So you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't exist if something wouldn't divide you. So this means that there's a program in the universe that all unity needs a force that divides it in order to create something different. And this division eventually will find balance to find a way to unite themselves again and create a new one. And that's what we call gravity or love. So basically the unity is love that has been split by something, by the same force of the diversion. And inside they have the magnetism of positive and negative that will try to pull them back together as unity again, which we call love. So this system is natural. This is something that is very easy to understand, I think, and it's very natural. The thing is that as many more divisions you get, the darker it gets. As many more divisions in the atom you have, molecules, chemicals, matter, and eventually the light cannot go through the matter. And so you see shadows, and the shadows scare. And when you see the shadows, you see these forms of light that have been evolving through time and space in order to divide you. So these creatures that have evolved to divide light in order to create diversity are what we call fallen angels, demons, darkness, and all these things that actually are the designers of this reality. If we wouldn't have the opportunity to experience love for others without darkness, it's because of darkness that you have a family, that you have a culture, that you have a religion, that you have faith, that you have projects, that you have a mission. So it's because of them, not because of unity. Unity is the thing that reminds us, hey, remember that even though all this difference, you are one. Mm-hmm. You are always one, and you will always be one. But through the division and darkness, you will break down yourself in order to take something from you that you wouldn't see unless you split. So it's like cutting yourself in half and saying, oh my gosh, I had no idea I had that inside. So basically, darkness is something that teaches you potential, something that helps you to understand yourself, which means that you don't have to follow the darkness to do that. You just have to accept the system of darkness as a way for you to find the light.
Mm-hmm. So you don't judge it. So not judging it helps.
Yes, not judging it helps. Now, some people blame the dark beings for wars and control and all these things that happen, the horrible things that happen in this world, humanity. But if you think a little bit, it's not them, it's our consciousness. So I'm not afraid of demons. I am afraid of humans, actually. So basically, we try, because of religion, we try to call ourselves naive, like if there are forces outside that are controlling us, and we are not the ones to blame, that we are not responsible of our actions. It's just the dark being around. But actually, we have to be aware that we are part of the creator. So if there is a war, it's because humans created a war.
Yeah.
Not because they created it.
Okay, so let's talk about, okay, great. So let's talk about that Orion gate. Because tell us what's at stake right now in our evolution. And if we're not waking up quickly here, tell us what's going to happen with the Orion gate and why it is so important that some darker forces, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it, are taking over this.
Yes, the thing is that, humans, this planet is awakening very fast. Even if we don't notice it, the past 60 years have been the fastest period in human history that humanity has awakened. So I know it's difficult to understand it because you just have to go to Instagram or the news, and you will see how dark is around, but also is the lightest period in human history, because there are much more awareness. That's why we can see the dark, because we are much more aware. Mm-hmm. So our planet is inside a solar system that is inside a system related to Sirius, which is in the arm of the galaxy called Orion. So we, as a planet, we are a cell inside the arm of a huge being called the Milky Way. So whatever happens to this arm of Orion affects all the cells, meaning all the suns and the planets that live in this arm. So basically, imagine that for some reason, we have a trauma, and we live the trauma, and we don't know how to handle the trauma, meaning we had an experience to push us towards evolution, but we are not facing it. If you don't face the trauma, suddenly the body starts to materialize that trauma in the shape of a disease. Mm-hmm. So a disease is a reaction of a trauma that you are not daring to see. So this trauma can become a cancer, for example. So if you start to have a cancer in one of your ganglions here, suddenly it will affect your arm. So the portal of Orion is basically here, in this shoulder. So this portal connects you to the heart of the galaxy. So if the darkness take over the portal of Orion, so you are possibly losing your arm or having heart attack. So, so the thing is, why is darkness taking that? Not because darkness wants for all of us to die, but because there's something that we are not taking care of. So darkness is feeding itself because of that. So unless all the systems of Orion become aware of their process and what do we have to do here in this side of the galaxy, the darkness will take over and will eat the cells that are thriving. But darkness is not the one to blame, neither light. It's just a process that we are not being aware of. And it's not something that we have to decide in this lifetime. It's a whole process of millions of years that affects an entire arm of a galaxy, which is a lot. And we have been working with this since 50,000 years ago. So it's not that today we have to decide or today is happening. Actually, it's happening in the past, in the present, in the future, because it all depends on how time and space affects us according to gravity between the stars. So for some planets, it's happening now. For some planets, it's happening in the future. So it's not something that maybe we have to take care of right now, but our actions in the present, according to bring this planet into awareness, is a clue to create the Earth as a mother cell that can replicate mother cells to take over the cancer cells. So if we do that as a school planet, as we are, we can teach a lot of people how to go through darkness to create light. So basically here, we are not against darkness. We are trying to understand how it works so we can then heal the process. So we can imagine ourselves like white cells trying to understand with the immunological system how the cancer cells works, so we can try to do something, basically.
Yeah. How do you feel when people attack your knowledge, and that because it seems like, I mean, when I listen to you personally, I was like, man, right on. Oh man, yeah. But some people I have heard throughout the Gaia platform, some are just, what is this? And how do you explain that some are really like having strong reaction with the knowledge and this information that you bring up? I mean, I'm sure actually people listening to this video right now are having strong reactions because it's hitting, it seems like it's hitting some parts of themselves that, you know, it wants to fight against it. Like what? Against what?
Exactly. Yes. The thing is, what I'm saying is not the truth. It's what I know about the universe. So there are many ways of seeing this. It's like if you go to a warrior, like a Spartan warrior, and say from a Roman point of view, or I don't know, a Canadian point of view, for example, you have to be polite with the opposition, you know, in order to accomplish something. Of course, the warrior will say no, because I have been fighting this war for thousands of years, and this is the way we know. So I cannot blame someone by being shocked by an information that is from another point of view when they have been prepared their whole existence for another task. It's like if I come from the brain and try to explain to a kidney, hey, you should think better. And the kidney will say, I cannot think better. I have to clean all your shit. It's basically that's the point of view. So of course, some cells will have this reaction to the same body, because that's why I don't care what other people think about what I'm saying, because what I'm saying maybe it's not for everyone, and it's not because, and don't misunderstand me, it's not because I consider that my truth is better, so they are not ready. is just because what I'm explaining is for the cells that are working with my same things. And they are working with other information that must be worked, but in a different way. So the thing is, what I can't really understand is why we lose so much time fighting to each other. That's called AIDS. That's called, the immunological syndrome. It's like the same organism trying to fight the same organism.
Yeah.
So
instead of learning from each other and taking what we want to take and learn what we want to learn.
Exactly. Yes. So I don't think we are missing a very important point here, which is if we all think the same, there is not humanity, there is no universe, there is no existence. Basically, existence means to get out from the point of view you are. Exit stance is exit from where you stay. Mm-hmm. Existence means I get out from where I stay, from where I am. So I have to change my point of view in order to exist. So there's no existence if we all think the same.
Yeah, but it's not that easy when you talk to people that are a little bit older than you, and they're maybe in their 60s or 70s and have based all their life on this knowledge that they've read or they've lived, they've experienced, and then you arrive young with all this information. It must be threatening to their ego and to many things.
It will always happen. It will happen to me too. Whenever I have a child, my child will say, it's not like that. And I will have problems maybe. And maybe I will say, oh my gosh, I have been saying this my whole life. And my child is saying, no, it's not this way. And we all face that eventually.
Yeah.
Because we are evolving, and evolution is about changing the point of view. So the problem is when you talk about coherence, spirituality, and love and acceptance, and suddenly you criticize someone saying that's not the truth, and this person is from the darkness.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's not light. That's not love. That's not. If love is to accept the others because they think equally as me, so that's not love. That's not unconditionality. When I usually divide these concepts, people that don't agree with me and they believe other things, I totally accept that. I am totally up to that, I agree because they are doing another part that I cannot do. But there are other people that it doesn't matter what you say, they will criticize you because their system is to criticize people. So because of that, I usually have fun. And if you see my social media, I usually answer to them in a funny way because I love to have fun. But I don't usually, I don't fight with anybody that criticize me because I don't really care.
Yeah. Yeah, even when you had these people kidnapping you in the middle of the desert, or I don't know where it was, and
yeah.
You never know where people are coming from.
No, of course not. You have no idea. But instead of being afraid, actually that took away many fears from me. Like all the times that I was close to death by being kidnapped with guns in my head, in places that I shouldn't be, walking in the border with Syria once, and they say there were mines and the airplanes were upon our heads and these kind of things, and the crash of a car. Everything that I thought normally would make me fearful of reality actually took all the fear away, because every time that something like that happened, I recognize, oh, this is a test for me to go beyond. So
yeah, when they ask when the camera, it took away your fear of camera, actually, from what I understood.
Yeah, that took me away, the fear of camera, the fear of talking to people.
It got you ready. So what would you say you're getting ready for, and what are we getting ready for
now?
Yeah, in this period of time.
In this period of time, we are in the middle of a huge decision in between the entire humanity, which is between a third world war or a transition into Aquarius. So any of those two situations would help the transition, but in one we will suffer, in the other one, no. So, but the thing is that usually humanity loves to suffer. Even if we say that we don't, we as humans love to be the victim in the history. So that's why we love to suffer. We love to be the poor ones, the ones that are being used, the ones that are being controlled. And we have been creating that statement and that consciousness for so long that most of the people in the planet believe that. And because we believe that, we give power to that system. We give power to control, we give power to wars, we give power to suffering, because we believed that the kingdom of heaven is only because we are suffering. So we have created that, and we have to transcend that idea in the next 200 years, so we don't have to suffer anymore the transitions and the evolution.
We have created that, or it's because of how you're explaining the different people from different galaxies and how things were put together. And I'm thinking of Cyrus. I'm thinking of when you describe the Atlantis and Mu and all, how didn't it mute at some time and things shifted and we became more and more into fear, or was fear always there? I mean, how did we get so controllable?
Fear was always there. Fear is a very useful tool for evolution. Basically, we survived this whole time in humanity, in history of the Earth, because of fear. Fear helped us to be braver, to be strong, to find tools, to find solutions. It's during the crisis and being fearful of losing everything that we solve stuff so very quick, and we evolve very fast. So fear is not the problem. Fear is something we will always have in order to find another way. The problem is when we use the fear as a system of life. So that was used by beings outside the planet and beings inside this planet. So when we use the fear as a system of evolution and only fear as a system, so sadly, we will always need someone to protect us, to guide us, to tell to us what to do, to decide for us. We need a father to guide us. We need a mother to protect us. These kind of things. So this is actually a very human thing, but designed by not only humans. And fear then should stop being a system and just become a tool for the individual, and not a tool for society, which is very different. And so all cultures, religions in history has been designed according to fear. So the social systems have been designed according to those religions and cultures. And we are living that today. And it's something that we cannot change just from one day to another.
So in Atlantis, there was already fear.
In Atlantis, of course there was fear, but they managed the fear. They manage it with inner work. They manage it with spirituality without religion. They manage it with a free culture. They manage it with initiatic path that took people to understand themselves in a different way. So all the population of Atlantis and the cultures dependent on Atlantis had designed path to help humans to transcend the emotions and use them as energy and tools for the spirit. So that is a huge clue of why that civilization grew up so fast and evolved such powerfully.
Yeah.
And some other cultures around the world, not only Atlantis, but some other cultures too. Then the fear, because when Atlantis was about to finish, about to end, what happened was that the system got afraid of losing power and losing control. And that was the moment when it failed, when the fear took over the system again.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes that's what we see in the spiritual realm, or spiritual teachers. Sometimes the spiritual ego, then something takes over and it goes too far, and then that person start changing their way of teaching. Or what would you like to say to people that are teachers out there that at some point misses the point of all this? Because at some point, you know what I mean? Like I've interviewed thousands of people, and sometimes I see them some shift, and I'm like, oh my God, they had such a precious knowledge, and at some point it got into their head, they thought it was them, and they forgot about something, I don't know, bigger at stake, I don't know, and it feels sad, to see that. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you not get there? Because it feels like this is how religion, at some point became religion. And how can this be just in the open, and what should we remember ourselves on this spiritual path to keep it pure, let's say?
Well, there are two things to say here, because of course many people would think of me like that.
Really?
Like, oh, yeah, of course. And even some of my friends thought it sometimes, like, oh, he's
Really?
changing the way of how he's doing the things because he's now egoistic, because he, I don't know, whatever, went up of his head or whatever. The actual truth about this, there are two different things. One thing is when actually that happened, when you start to believe even more than others. And the other thing that happened is that sometimes when your own truth starts to reach so many people, the structure in order for you to bring it to other people starts to grow. And for example, when I started, it was me and my mom in the kitchen of my house doing this. We organized everything, we did everything, we managed everything. And suddenly the kitchen was too small, so we had to rent a place. And then a lot of people start to work with us, and you have to pay to the people because they are not just volunteers, because sometimes you need people to work with you 100%. So you start to grow. So in order for me to keep doing what I'm doing, I start to have to do pay stuff in order to earn money to pay to these people and the projects. So if I don't have the money, I can just walk around Argentina. If I have the money, I can go all over the world. So that part of and suddenly I have a lot of followers, so I cannot receive 3,000 people in my house like I did before. So now it's all much more organized. So sometimes when the organizations grow, some people think, oh, they think that they are better now. And actually what happened is that the structure grew so much that you cannot hold it like you were doing it before.
Yeah.
That's something that as a rising Capricorn, I try to explain all the time, because it's the system, it's organization. You are growing. It's like suddenly you cannot attend all the people that are coming or send you messages.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that sometimes happen to people. But of course, there are some people or some masters that they believe that they are much more because they know more. And I would like to remind all those people that we are just cells in a body. So we are just transpassing data from others through us to others. And eventually we are not going to be that cell anymore. So something that I like to remind everyone, and I usually finish some of my conferences with this, is that, oh, by the way, you all have to remember that you are going to die. Because when you die, it really doesn't matter anything that you have done as Matias. It will only continue what you have done for others that are still alive. So it's not what you aim for you to enlighten yourself. It's about how much have you left to others to remind for you to live in their actions. You know? So basically, I think that that sometimes we have to remind us that we are going to die and that we are just tools. As a body, as a personality, the ego is a tool. That's it. And
because there is sometimes some people that are influencing these leaders too, that to do more, to take over more, to you know, you know what I mean? Like it's sometimes I saw it many times. Like it's not so much like Ama, for example, that I've had the chance to interview, but it's the people around that gravitate around that then starts to build stories and things, and it starts to be, you know what I mean? Like it happened to many gurus, many leaders, many teachers, this stuff. As it grows, it seems, you know exactly what I mean, I think.
I don't know the story of many, like really, I don't know the story of many. But I know that there are people that think like that of me, which I totally get it. I totally understand. That's why I was explaining that before. And we cannot change that mind. But when that happened to people, sometimes it's because they were afraid of losing, or they were taught that you have to show yourself, or maybe it all turns back to mom and dad. Basically, it all turns back to, did your dad say to you, well done? Did your mom tell you, I love you? Sometimes, even if it doesn't matter if you are a great master or not, you had a mom, you had a dad, and depending on how your relationship with them is how you will relate to others. And sometimes it's all about, I don't like this, but sometimes it's all about Freud more than spirituality. Because the ego is basically formed by mom and dad, and maybe the great parents, but it's not much more than that. The being maybe has.
Yeah, but it does some damages. It could do some damages though on people when those people have followers and they're there to take over power and money and you know, and misguide, and then start guiding people in the wrong direction. I mean, and people that are looking for answers and people that are trusting, and you know, I mean, it has created huge damages in the past, over the years, the decades,
Yeah, exactly. Because usually we have, and I don't misunderstand this, we have 3 levels of consciousness, which is the consciousness, the unconsciousness, and subconsciousness. So these 3 levels are necessary for everything. And it's like the 3 brains. Like the consciousness is in the brain, the unconsciousness is in the heart, and the subconsciousness is in the intestines. So you cannot work with one of them. So if you don't have the subconscious, you don't have blood, because the intestines are the ones that produce the blood in the body because of what you eat. So if you don't have subconscious, you don't have blood. Without blood, the unconsciousness cannot work. And if this doesn't work, we don't have blood for the brain to work, so you don't have consciousness. So you cannot erase one of them. And usually people say we have to get rid of unconsciousness and all become conscious. Mm-hmm. What's the problem with this? When you become conscious about everything, you are not living anymore in the heart. You are living in the mind. Mm. And suddenly you become the first law of the universe, mentalism. Mm. So you understand everything, but you cannot feel anything. Mm. Suddenly you are so cold in spirit, because unconsciousness is the only one that allows you to feel the connectivity in everything. Because unconsciousness is the waves of movement of things. The consciousness is the understanding of that movement, and the movement is the one that gives meaning to the subconscious. Mm. So this means that there will always be people that are conscious and guide the energy of the unconscious. So these people with consciousness cannot accomplish anything without the unconsciousness of people. And these unconscious people cannot move without the subconscious of the reality, which have been created by everyone. So this system, which is perfect, actually can become horrible when the person with consciousness are using for its own benefit the energy of their unconscious. Because, for example, a musician in a concert is a conscious being that produces music to move the hearts, the unconscious of thousands. So these thousands of people might do exactly what the conscious will say. If this person says, now you sing this, everyone will sing that, because they resound by heart. And they are not aware of what they are doing. They are just moved by the unconscious energy. And it's beautiful. We all love to go to concerts. We all love to hear music. So that's beautiful. But if that conscious person is Hitler, you get what you get, you know? So the problem is not that there are unconscious people or subconscious traumas. The thing is, how prepared is the conscious being to be ruled by the self or the ego? So that's why it's not about awakening people. It's about remember to the people that they have to feel with the hearts the right person that are.
Exactly.
So I think it's a very
I get it.
Important understanding about how the consciousness works, so we don't go into the ego part.
Yes. Last question, because it's already an hour interview. I knew it was gonna go over.
Sorry, the difference between one and another, usually the one that is guided by the ego usually says, I want you to do this, or I want you to follow me to blah, blah, or gives orders. The one that is conscious by the self is the one that will say, I suggest for you this, or find yourself. These are some tools that help me to do it.
Yeah.
So these are difference of the self and the ego, usually.
Yeah. Plus the resonance, as you said, that we feel in the heart when that person speaks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Last question, because it's been over an hour, and I as I just said, I knew this, but you said you remember. This is a big topic, but there's so much more on Gaia. So you guys, if you want to know more about remembering, because you talk, there's a whole. I mean, your whole series is called Initiation, but there's a whole part on you remembering. You're saying to remember past lives, and how remember past lives is through the emotions and through the ressenti, the feelings, and all that. Can we end this? I know it's not so much a closing question, but it's one that opens so much more files than later on. But can you tell us more about that part where we remember our past life through emotions and through the feelings?
Yeah.
And there is so much more on Gaia, but just if you can summarize this, and we'll end on that.
Yes, of course. Remember means to put the numbers together. That's what it actually means. So when you talk about remember, it's not about going to the past and know something from the past. It's actually to put together the parts that you have inside. So inside of you, you have different parts that are separated, which are members or memories, memos, which are the codes of stuff that your body has lived, your soul has lived, your spirit has experienced. So these three memos are all around your body. So remembering is to put all those memos together. And sometimes there are information from the future, from the past, or from the present, but they all live inside of you. But they are storage in cells, in codes and stuff. The way you can move something that is stuck inside your cells is by movement, which is motion. So the motion of things. So what is energy in your body? Your energy are emotions. Emotions are the movement of the energy inside your body. So only emotions can move and break the cell in order to bring that information all over. Mm-hmm. And they do it through hormones. So hormones are those chemical structures that go from one cell and organ to another, bringing data and information and taking it in shapes of protein to different parts of the body. So are the emotions the movement of energy that pulses a chemical reaction that opens data in your cells so your neurological system can read it. Mm-hmm. So basically, remembering is only possible through emotions. That's why it's fine to cry, it's fine to have anger, it's fine to experience all the emotions, not to get stuck with those emotions, but yes, to use them, to allow them to flow, because they bring back memories that helps you to complete the picture. Mm. That's remembering.
And that's how you had memories of past lives in Egypt and many other places, and related to what's really amazing by reconnecting to our past lives memories is that there's gifts in those, and things that we've have already experienced that we can then reuse in this life also. And I think it's time for us to remember our past lives. It's time for us to be guided and to fully be in our life's mission, because there's so much potential right now to liberate our past lives and to live that fully and be so present on Earth and be fully present in our mission to support this shift. I think it's never been a better time to do this.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Matias, for this time with you. Thank you so much for accepting to do this interview. And for those of you guys that want to see more, there is more on Gaia. They're lucky because they have 4 seasons of Matias. My God. So that's how many hours of recording? Oh my God. So many. I don't know, many hours. And like any series, you just want to just watch it all. So thank you so much, Matias. And hopefully you'll get to come and visit us in France. We're so excited that the series is translated in French too now. So thank you so much, and good luck with everything that you're doing. Wonderful
Thank
job,
you.
good job.
And I hope next time I can do it in French.
Bah oui, j'espère bien.
Et j'ai parlé un peu français, mais je sais pas si tu...
Ouais.
Je sais pas.
C'est bien essayé. Merci beaucoup, Matias. À bientôt. Bye. Thank you.